Your car's dirty.
Yeah, I know. I need to get
I
it
don't
cleaned.
go in dirty cars, you know.
Yeah, right. Welcome to the episode of Training Marisol Patel how to operate a manual transmission. This is going to be fun. The first thing to know about before you even get started with something like this is if you're a female, you absolutely do not want to be wearing heels. You want to have gym shoes on, something that's comfortable until you get used to this. If you're a bro, don't be wearing flip-flops in the fucking car. You're not going to the beach. Wear shoes. Second thing is wear something comfortable. Get enough rest, because if you're cranky, you're going to be a little bitch about it. What other things do you need to know before you do this?
Make sure you eat so you're not hungry and you don't rush.
Yeah, you don't want to be rushing to do this.
Or you don't want to have diarrhea.
You don't want to have diarrhea. Why don't you want to have diarrhea?
Because then you'll make frequent stops and it's just going to get messy in the car.
Oh, I like the smell of it. But that's just me.
That's a whole different episode.
Yeah, shitting in the car is one of my favorite pastimes. So the next thing you're going to want to know about driving stick is if you're teaching somebody especially, or if you're ready to learn, there's a couple conditions I've met, especially with women, that prevent them from wanting to learn how to drive stick. If you don't want to learn, if the desire's not there, don't do it. Because if you're forced to do it or you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're just not going to learn right, and it's going to be a nightmare for the person trying to teach you. The other thing about learning new things, and this is $10,000 of counseling speaking, there's two reasons why people typically don't want to do new things or learn new things or grow personally. It's because they're either afraid or it's insecurity or a combination of both. And learning something like this can be very scary, actually, because you're on the road with other cars and everybody's got their phobias of why driving manual transmissions are a bad thing. But you know what? You just gotta grow some balls and fucking do it. And in the case of Marisol, she's not doing it, of course, because she wants to. Why are we doing this today?
Because I want to grow as an individual and learn new things.
Oh, yeah, no. It couldn't just because her pile of shit RAV4 automatic transmission's ready to blow through the ground of the car. So, one of the things that you definitely want to do is, it's hard to teach somebody you're a significant other with. I find that's very difficult. So if you have somebody that you know that can teach somebody how to drive stick that are not a couple, guy or girl, I mean, if you've got some gay lover, that's going to be just as hard as if you have a hetero couple. So try to find somebody else that's not in a relationship with you. And that's good for Marisol because she's going to get deported here in a couple weeks anyway, so it's really no stress for me.
I am American.
You're not American. So the first thing you typically want to do is you want to get the driver in a comfortable position that's natural. But the most important thing is when you're using a clutch, you don't want to have your foot or your leg overly extended where your toes are way far out, because it makes it really uncomfortable to push down the clutch and release it. So the first thing I'm going to say is what you need to know most importantly about this without getting technical is every car has a motor and a transmission, whether it's automatic or manual.
Do we really have to hear all this shit?
Yeah, you gotta hear it, because I'm gonna go over it one more time with you. Okay. Transmission is connected to the engine, and with a manual trans it has a clutch. And all a clutch does is releases and connects the transmission to the engine that drives the wheels. So push down the clutch right now. Push it all the way to the floor.
This one?
Far left. Use your left foot.
Oh.
Okay. So when your foot's all the way down to the floor, the clutch is like this. Okay, so let go of the clutch.
Okay.
Push down the clutch.
Okay.
Let go of the clutch. Okay. Now push down the clutch. Okay. Now, what happens if you pop the clutch? Just pop it. Let it go. It does it really hard.
Okay.
Now push down the clutch again. Now let it go slowly.
So it's more smooth.
It's more smooth. So now imagine if your arm's pulling away from me. the same concept. If your arm's pulling away from me and you pop that clutch really hard, as you're pulling, it locks on it and it jars on there and it grabs really hard and fast. And this is because it's a friction material. You don't want it grabbing. It's like if you have a guy trying to molest you and touch you, you don't want him just fucking grabbing your tits and your ass and hard and touching you hard. You want him to touch you smoothly. So the whole point is when you're releasing that clutch, especially from a start, you want to release it smoothly until you feel it grab. Until you feel it grab. You don't want to be popping it and grabbing it like that. Okay? So the big thing is when you're learning how to drive stick, especially the first time, all you should be worried about is starting in first gear, coming to a stop, and starting from first gear over and over again until you can come to a stop and start smoothly in first gear. No other gear matters until you can do that. So the first thing you do is acquaint yourself with the pedals. Far left pedal is your clutch. That's always left foot. Your right foot is always brake and always gas like an automatic. Okay? So when you start off, you're going to always have your right foot on the brake, which is the middle pedal. Okay? And then your parking brake's usually on, and I always start in neutral. Neutral is when the stick is in the middle. Whenever you touch this motherfucker, doesn't matter what gear you go in, if you ever touch this, you have to have the clutch all the way down.
Okay.
Because once you push that clutch down, what does it do? It releases the transmission from the engine. If you try to move this fucker without having the clutch down and everything's together, those gears are going to grind inside there because they're all connected and you're trying to move the stick while everything's connected. Clutch down, frees this all up. You can move this any direction you want with the clutch down safely. As soon as you pop that clutch, you cannot move this.
Okay. I think I need to move my
seat forward. Far left. That's what I'm saying. When you start this, make sure your foot is comfortable pushing down that clutch so you have leverage on it because it will get tiring when you're learning. So you're in neutral. If you're in neutral, the car will roll. So take your foot off the brake. You can feel it kind of starting to roll a little bit. If this is in neutral, you always have to have your foot on the brake, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go into first. Foot on brake, clutch down, first gear. Okay. Now you can lift off the brake pedal. Completely off the brake pedal. Now just slowly lift off the clutch in first gear. Slow, 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 until you start to feel the car. Feel it moving, hesitating?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, push it back down. Come to a stop, put your foot on the brake. Now slowly take your foot off the brake again. You're still in first gear. Slowly let off the clutch until you start to feel it. Just tiny bit moving. Okay. Slower, slower, slower. Okay. Now you're starting to move a little bit more. Slowly lift off the clutch all the way. That's a first gear start. Now that's a first gear start without using the gas pedal. Okay, so come to a stop. Clutch in. Brake pedal.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll get used to that. It's fine. That's all we're going to do for the next 10 minutes is starting in first, coming to a stop, going into neutral, and back.
Okay.
Make sense? Okay, so go into first gear, clutch in, brake on, first gear, slowly take your foot off the brake and slowly let off the clutch. And then once it's going, once you know it's going, you can take your foot off all the way. And you'll realize that point where you can lift off and it's really going.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can drive like a normal car. So just use your gas pedal and drive like normal.
I feel like I'm too close to the wheel.
Well, you might be, but for right now, I'm just giving you a break for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is kind of hard.
Well,
I'm not going to know this when I'm by myself in the car. That's the problem.
you don't need to focus on that right now. All you need to
And driving and knowing where I'm going and...
I'm going to make a point about this because this is something I wanted to say in this video especially. This is something I learned in a Mazda race school about 10 years ago. And this is before I knew how to... I really was a shitty driver. I'm not saying I'm good now. I'll check my ego at the door. But there's 4 things that I learned. Actually, it's one thing, but they break it into 4 things. When you don't know how to drive, or this is related to the track, but it's just about stick too. There's two bad modes to be in when you're driving. There's unconsciously incompetent, which is the worst drivers on the road, because they don't know that they're bad, and they're incompetent. They're just unconsciously incompetent. Then there's the drivers that are consciously incompetent, that know they're not good drivers, but they drive anyway. And in the case of driving stick for the first time, that's where you're at. You kind of know you suck at it, right? And then when you get to the next level, you become consciously competent. You know what you're doing, but you still have to put your mind to it. You kind of have to think about what you're doing. And when you become to a certain level, and this is related to track driving, when you're unconsciously competent, you just do things without thinking about it. You know where to turn, you know what to do. And on the road, when you're a decent driver, a lot of people don't reach that point. They still have to think about it. But the whole goal is, especially for you, you're a pretty decent driver overall. When you get good at stick, that's where you want to be, is unconsciously competent, where it just happens. Your body does it without thinking. And that's really the goal of where you want to be. But you have to go through those steps. So you're kind of like in the bottom step. You'll get to the place where you can drive. You'll get to drive to work, and you'll be freaking out about it because you know what you're doing, but you're still thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
Eventually you want to get past that hump and get to that point where you're not thinking about it. And that's the hardest part about learning this, especially with driving. So that's what we're going to work on.
I need a Post-it with notes.
Yeah.
Let's put a bunch of Post-its down here.